Hello, I'm Helen and I teach at the Dorothy Benson Senior Services Center. And today we're finishing off our basic knitting class, sewing with knits class, not knitting, but sewing with knits. And last week I showed you how to sew the pair of simple pants. And we actually call this one seam pants. My other one is, where did it go? Let me see. Okay, so last week I sewed this one, okay? And it's kind of a loose fitting leggings, okay? I went ahead and finished the whole thing. So I'll show you what we did was we sewed the seam, inseam, and then we sewed the crotch line. And what I did is I folded over, I made a casing is what I did. And a casing is a little like a tube you make with the fabric where you insert the elastic. So that's what it looks like. So I folded it over the width of the elastic, and I'm using, I make so many of these elastic pants. I just go ahead and buy a roll of, this one's 1 inch wide elastic. And I make sure I get the kind that it's got these ridges right here. It's supposed to be non-rollover, you know, kind of twisty thingy. And I make sure it's a really good, strong one. Okay. 1 inch is okay for lightweight fabrics. I'm going to order a 1.5 inch for heavier weight fabrics. It helps hold up the pants better when it's because of the weight of the fabric weighs down the pants. So I made the casing and then I double stitch, you know, the twin needle stitch. I don't know if you can see that. Okay. So I did use a serger on this one. So it looks different on the back side, but you can use your zigzag in the twin needle, which is, and don't forget, I use the twin needle that is, where did it go? Okay. It's the one by Schmidt's called Stretch. Okay, and it's a twin needle, and what it is you've got 2 needles and 1 shaft. All right. Okay, and on knits, of course, you want to either use a stretch or ballpoint needle, jersey needle, or else your stitches will skip. All right, now I took the elastic, and how do you know where, you know, before we make the casing, what I would recommend is, this won't have the casing in there. I take an elastic band like this, okay? I put those pants on, then I put this on so I can see where the waistline should be. And this helps, okay, keeps the pants on. And I mark where the waistline is going to be. Then I fold it over and I sew the casing, okay, with double stitch close to it. And you want to sew it the width of the elastic and just a tad more, right? Because of the turn of cloth, you need a little bit extra space. Don't make it too wide, because then the elastic just moves around and might twist around in there. Now, I just use a big safety pin to run the elastic through the waistband. You can use a bodkin. I've got several bodkins. I have no clue where they are, but the safety pin is always on my pin cushion, so I always end up using a safety pin. And then I run it through, I try on the pants. Okay, I run the elastic through, and then I try on the pants and I adjust it to where, how tight I want it to fit. I never measure out the elastic and cut it and sew it onto the waistband. This is how I learned to do it. And the reason why I do it the casing method is sometimes the elastic wears out, or sometimes you need to let, you know, like if I gained weight, I would have to make it a little bit looser. So that's why I have the casing. Now, after I put this together, okay, I overlap it about 1 inch. Okay, so actually it's about 1.5 inches. And that way, if I wanted to loosen it, I can undo my stitching where I joined the two elastics, and I can widen it a little bit. Let's say you didn't have this overlap and you really needed to widen your elastic, you can always attach a segment, just stitch it to each end. And when I stitch the elastic, a lot of times they'll tell you, throw it under the sewing machine and zigzag stitch it with a wide stitch. I used to do that. Then I found out when I needed to undo the stitching to widen or replace the elastic, I couldn't see my stitches. So what I do is I just use a big needle and embroidery floss, and I just make big sewing stitches like this. And that way, when I have to undo it, I can see it. So I'm going to go ahead and do that, okay? So what you would do is just make big stitches. And the reason why you want big stitches is, that way there's stretch here, okay? And I just jab it in there and stitch it together. Okay. Now, this class, this is the last session of this beginning sewing with knits class. If you're a total beginner, you might want to watch my 2-hour video for beginners, and I go over needles, types of thread, the sewing machine, and things like that. So it is 2 hours long, but it's basic information, okay? You don't need to, speaking about the bodkin, you don't need to go out and buy every single tool. And some of us just get addicted to these gadgets and, end up buying all this stuff. And it just, adds clutter, but you really don't need all these gadgets. What is important is a good pair of scissors. And I tend to like the ones that are serrated. They've got micro serrations. You got little zigzag things that you can't really see. And the reason why I like those is because it grabs the fabric and the fabric doesn't slip out from the scissors, so you can cut better. However, I would invest in a rotary cutter. And remember, these blades are expensive, so don't hit a pin or something metallic with it. And a cutting mat. So I've got this very large cutting mat that covers my table. And it was too wide for my table. So on the other end, I just cut it to fit the table. But it can come off the table and I can roll it up and put it, like behind my headboard or something on my bed. So a rotary cutter and a cutting mat are really good because you can really cut accurate curves and things like that. Just be careful that your hand is never in front of the blades, okay? And you always want to keep it closed. This one has an automatic shut off. It just closed automatically. And always buy these when there's like a sale or a coupon. Okay, so so basically that's all you really need: a good pair of scissors or a cutting implement. A mat is, if you want, you can get a mat. If you don't want to get a rotary cutter and a mat at first, then just get a good pair of scissors. And they also have those cardboard cutting boards with the grid on it that fold out. I used to use that before I had the rotary cutter. I used to use that all the time, and I didn't have space, so I would put it on my bed and cut out my fabric that way. So basically, you just need a good pair of scissors or rotary cutter and cutting mat. That cardboard thing to lay out your fabric is very convenient because the bed seems to be the top of the bed seems to be a pretty good size, and that cardboard a grid thing, it folds away, so you can put it away. And I would just get a regular steam iron. You don't need any fancy steam iron or anything. Mine shuts off after a couple of minutes, and that's okay because that makes me get up from the table and walk around or do something else until the iron warms up. Because you do need to move around more instead of just staying at the machine. And so that's good. Now, always invest in good threads. Okay, that's important. And like I said in the basic sewing video, I get the black, I get the white, and then I get the shades of gray. Okay, so I have a light gray and dark gray, and that should work with almost every fabric. And then you don't have to go and buy a specific color. Okay. You know, normally you will want to use the matching color thread, but sometimes you just don't have it. So, and I do tend to have more than one spool. Okay. Now, and then invest in your machine needles, and all these can be purchased on sale or with a coupon. So just be patient and wait for that. So I went ahead and sewed my elastic on here, and all I have to do is put it back in here. Okay. Now, before I top stitch this part to close that opening, what I do is, because this part is going to be bulky where I joined the elastic, I just kind of move this away from that opening by sliding it around. Okay. So I'll just keep working on this and working until that opening goes away. I mean, that it goes away from the opening. Okay, so that's what I do. And then it's a little bit tricky, but because the elastic is going to be in the way, but you can top stitch this. And then sometimes I can get away by folding the elastic on the inside, scooting it out of the way so that it's not near the presser foot. Okay, and then I can stitch it. Or you could, because you're using a twin needle, you can't really, you might be able to use a zipper foot depending on what kind of zipper foot you have. And you just have to make sure that your needles don't hit the zipper foot. Okay. And you're going straight stitching, so you're not doing a zigzag, so it should be okay. So that's what is my next step. Now, one of the things I do is after after I close that opening, I will put this on again, try this on again, and I would adjust all the elastic around here. Okay. And then I would take it off. And then right where you have the seam, or let's just say the side of your waist, because you don't want the elastic or the gathers to move around, I would do just regular stitch, up, down, and up. Okay. And you want to do it, usually you want to do it where you have the seams so you can stitch in the ditch. Okay. Which means that little space where the two fabrics meet. Okay. And that keeps the elastic from moving all around the waistline. All right. So this is a simple pair of one seam pants. I just have one inseam. And don't forget, we have, it's really important to put some kind of a stabilizing interfacing. I just happen to have, you know, the stabilizing tape, but you can cut knit interfacing into strips and stabilize it. If you don't have that, now this is iron-on knit facing, but if you don't have that, you might be able to get away. I really don't know what the alternative is, because you don't want something that doesn't give, you know. You could try to use a very thin knit to reinforce it. Now, sometimes I will, if it's a tight fitting pair of pants or leggings, I will run another zigzag stitch, a smaller stitch next to it at the most crucial points. Okay. So I want you to think of sewing clothes as constructing with fabric, and you just have to reinforce, you have to, you know, stabilize certain areas and things like that. Now, when I tried this on, I went ahead and decided where my hem was on the bottom, and I folded over once and I folded over twice. Now you can fold it over just once, okay? And usually knits, they don't unravel, so the edges should be okay. The reason why I folded over twice is because this fabric is a very lightweight fabric, and I just wanted to give it a little bit more weight down here, okay, so that it'll hang better. So I will top stitch this, from the right side, okay, and the pair of pants will be finished. So the finished product, and this is the one I worked on last week. I just went ahead and did it. So the finished product is, you can't really, it's double top stitching, okay, and it stretches, all right. And I did fold this twice also, so that it has a little bit more weight on the bottom. And then here's my waistband, and I haven't done the adjust the gathers and stitch it down so that the elastic doesn't move. I haven't done that yet, so I'll have to do that. And that's done with a straight stitch. And let's see. Okay, so basically that's, and don't forget, when you do the top stitching, you want to use the twin needle, okay? And like I said before, you're going to put two spools of thread on your machine, okay? So I've got a space for another one. If you don't have one of these, you can probably rig something up, use chopsticks or anything, just stabilize something, tape it down, whatever. If you don't have two spools of the same color, you can just wind some on your bobbin, some of that color on your bobbin, and then you can put the bobbin on this spool, okay? And you would take the two threads and thread it as one, okay? But when you come down to the needle, it's going to be a double needle, so you're going to have to thread one in one needle, another, okay? And basically that's it. A lot of people, the bottom is just one thread and it zigzags on the bottom, so it has stretch. And a lot of times the people will recommend woolly nylon. I do have woolly nylon, but I don't use it. And it does give you a little bit more stretch, a lot more stretch actually. But the problem with that, that I don't like, is that you have to hand wind it on the bobbin. So you have to just go and kind of guess, how much length you need and just wind it, and then you stick it in your bobbin. So I find that I have enough give with the twin needle and the zigzag going underneath, so I don't have to do that. Okay, so let's see. Let's go ahead and talk a little bit more about different kinds of knits, okay? It's really hard to find knits in the local stores. You can go up Buford Highway, or I think it's 85, off of 85. And I think it's off of the Jimmy Carter Boulevard. There is a store called Fine Fabrics. It's a huge warehouse, and they have all kinds of knits and all kinds of fabrics too. And you can try different types of knits there. They have pretty good prices there. Most of it's probably going to be polyester or synthetic. There's also like Gale K's, and they have a store off of Jimmy Carter Boulevard and also one on Cheshire Bridge Road. I do most of my shopping online, so I kind of guess what kind of knit I'm going to end up when I buy it. But sometimes, it's a total bomb, okay? And those that don't work out, I just use as practice pieces or to make a sample or test piece of a new pattern. And then those I really, really don't want, I donate it to the American Sewing Guild. And once a year, they have a huge, huge fabric sale and other items, sewing related items. And they're all, it's for raising money for their education programs. It's so many of us are fabricaholics. And so we end up donating a lot of fabric to the American Sewing Guild. And I think it happens in October when they have their fabric sale. It's just a one-day event. And you can pick up fabric for $2 a yard. So if you really wanted to get into sewing, I would recommend just buying a lot of fabrics there. Probably you're going to have to guess at the fabric content. There is a thing called a flame test you can do, and where you take a small piece of fabric, and you can look this up online. Yeah, but you take a small swatch and take it outside and light it. And depending on if it makes ash or it just curls up into like a tough, hard black ball, and the smell of the smoke, it's going to tell you what kind of fiber content it is. So for example, if it's silk or wool, it'll smell like hair burning. If it's like cotton, rayon, or some kind of a cellulose fiber, it'll make a nice ashiness smell like wood burning. And if it's a synthetic, usually it's a toxic smell. And I've not tried this, but acetate's supposed to smell like vinegar. I haven't really tested that. Okay, so most of my fibers, I already know beforehand what I bought, but sometimes it's a mystery fiber, and I will do a flame test, but do it outside, okay? So the American Sewing Guild is a good place to pick up fabric if if you were a beginner and wanted to try different things, because at $2 a yard, you're not wasting a whole lot of money. So sewing your own clothes, you don't really save that much money because there's so many inexpensive places you can buy garments nowadays. But I'll tell you where you save money. You save money with, let's see, formal clothes like Mother of the Bride, or, some kind of an event. And in my case, the reason why I sew my own clothes is because nothing fits me. And for example, if I buy a pair of pants, I have to cut off 7 inches, okay, because I'm small. All my sleeves are too long, okay. So, and plus I like to make one-of-a-kind items, and I want things to fit me. I don't want to buy something and have to alter it. Altering is a real pain. So that's why I make my own clothes. So I probably don't save any money making my own clothes, but I enjoy it too. So, and then I love fabric. So I like combining and making more like a wearable art kind of thing. I'm going to show you some different kinds of knits here. Okay. So you can sew with almost any kind of knit, but like I said before, you have to do testing on swatches. So I have, let's see, what is this? Okay, it looks like this is sweatshirt fleece, okay? So this is a knit, and it doesn't really, well, I guess it stretches pretty good on this side. Okay, so you want to test the stretch. If it can go in the wash and dryer, I would always pre-wash everything. Especially if somebody's giving you fabric, or if you go to like the Sewing Guild's fabric sale, I would pre-wash everything, because just in case there might be like a moth egg or something, in there. The ones I buy online are safe, but I do pre-wash them because I want maximum shrinkage. So you can sew with sweatshirt knits, and this is a sweater knit, and unfortunately it's polyester. I don't like polyester knits because they're just kind of staticky, way too staticky. But I like the color and everything, so I did this. And on this one, I think, a little thing, I always put a little thread mark there so I know where the back is, because I've worn things backwards a couple of times. And okay, so this is just a simple tunic, and I'll turn it inside out. And this one was serged. Okay, so this one is a set-in sleeve, and I got lint or something stuck on here. This is a sit-in. That's another reason I don't like polyester, because it attracts lint, and I have a white-haired, long-haired, fine-furred cat, and all her fur just balls up in the dryer or washer. So this is a set-in sleeve. Okay, I'm showing you this inside out. So we didn't do the set and sleeve on this session. Now, one thing I do is I put that stabilizer on the shoulder seam, okay? And if you buy ready to wear garments, a lot of times you see that silicone stabilizer on there. It does have a little stretch, okay? And this is to keep the fabric from really stretching out when you wear it. So it just holds it in, but has enough give. And on this one, I don't even have a rib knit. I just folded, I folded over, but because this knit was kind of, you know, hairy, I did serge the edge and then I top stitched it. You can't even see my top stitching here, okay, because of the pattern. So that's all I did on that one. So it goes fast, especially if you have a serger, because you don't have to trim the seams at all. So I gave it a nice wide hem on the sleeve so that, you know, it'll have some weight, okay, and hang better. And on the sleeve, I don't think I think I did serge that. Yeah, I did serge it because it's a kind of a loose knit, loose weave. So I kind of serged it so that nothing comes out. And then I top stitched it. So same with the hem, okay? You can't even tell, but I gave it a wide hem, all right? And then I top stitched it. So you can use a sweater knit like this. You can also use a lacy sweater knit. And it's just, it's kind of, sometimes it's sad when you find the perfect fabric online and you want to get more, but you know, of course, it's always sold out. This one is a kind of a loose open weave knit. And I think it's a wool and something content. I can't remember. I actually throw this in the wash and it seems to survive. I do pre-wash everything, so I am careful with wools though. I did stabilize. I'll show you the inside on the construction on this. It's the same, probably the same simple tunic pattern as the red one. Okay, so on this one, once again, I had the set end sleeves, okay? And what I did, because this is a loose weave, I have fused interfacing, stretch interfacing on the shoulder seam and also on the armhole. And the reason why is because there's not much fabric here, right, with the holes. So I wanted to make sure there was some more material that the stitches could grab onto. And I did the same with the neckline. I just fused a little strip. Then I folded it over, and I think I only folded it over once, maybe twice, no, once, and top stitched it. So you can't see any of the stitching, but it stabilizes the neckline, the fusible. And I have the fusible everywhere. So here it's more visible here, the whole underarm of the seam, sleeve seam, okay? And probably the side seam. Yeah, the side seam has it too. So I had to use a lot of this fusible interfacing because of the nature of this knit that's very, very loosely woven. So this is one of my favorite garments. It's yeah, I can wear a tank top underneath. I don't, you know, and it has enough air circulation, I guess. Okay, so I want to show you, this is the fabric that I really liked online, and it was polyester, and it is polyester. And I just don't like the feel of polyester against my skin. Plus, it was very, very thin. And once again, all the cat fur has stuck onto it. Yeah, it's just this, my other cats, I didn't have this problem, but this one, her fur is so fine, it just felts real bad. If there's any of it on here. Okay, So this one is, yeah, I really like that fabric, but it was very thin. And like I said, I didn't want the feel of the polyester against my skin. So what I did was I lined it. I just put black rayon knit fabric and, you know, just treat it as one fabric, put the polyester and the rayon fabric together. And I just treated that as one fabric. So the rayon kind of keeps the static at bay a little bit, but I like the way it feels against my skin. Now, you do have to be careful because the rayon does tend to sag. So before I hem this, I just hung it up for about a week. So I'll let the rayon stretch out. This one, the pattern is a raglan sleeve. I'll show you what I did. So once again, I just treated it was just easier to treat the two fabrics as one. Okay, so this is the back side. All I did for the neckline, it has a kind of a collar. I just folded it and then top stitched it. So this is my raglan sleeve, and I didn't stabilize anything. I think I tested it and it didn't seem to like stretch that much, so I didn't really stabilize there. Probably didn't stabilize anything, yeah. And gave it a nice deep hem on the sleeve, and also a nice deep hem on the bottom, okay? So it's a little bit heavier because it's got two layers of fabric, but it hangs better and it feels better. So you kind of have to test things, you know, like drape two different fabrics together and, you know, kind of on your shoulder and see if you like the way it feels and everything. So I'm going to show you another sweater knit. This, I believe, is cotton and something else. I can't remember. It's kind of like a sweater knit. Backside is like that. And once again, you can get away with a lot because, you know, the pattern is busy. I gave it a deep hem, okay? And the same simple tunic pattern. And this one does have, it has a set-in sleeve. And on these sleeves, I didn't even reinforce it because I tested it and it didn't, you know, it doesn't have, I don't think it has, well, it does have good stretch, but it was pretty stable. However, I did stabilize the shoulder seam so it doesn't like stretch out on me. Okay, and just simple fold over and top stitch. And you can't even see the top stitching on the outside. Okay, so those are like sweater knits of different types. Let me tell you a little bit about velour and velvet knits. Okay, this one is a polyester velvet knit. I hate the way this feels against my skin. This is a skirt, so it's not so bad, but I hate tops made out of this because it just feels cold and damp for some reason. Now, when stitching these are real hard. And the reason why is because they have a pile, so they have like fibers sticking up like that. And then when you put the two right sides together, they just kind of like move around way too much. So when you're stitching on like velvet knit, okay, and this is a knit, what I have to do is I have to baste no matter what. And this is actually done with a zigzag. This is not done with a serger at all. Yeah, the whole thing is done. The whole thing is done with a small zigzag. Sometimes this fabric's thick, okay? It's pretty substantial. Sometimes if you do with a serger, it's just too much bulk. So you have to test it and try with a zigzag, see if it hangs good. Sometimes if it's done with a serger, it might be too stiff and this part will sag and this part won't. Okay, I think I must have made this. I wonder when I made this because the whole thing is zigzag stitched. No, I have a serge to hem. Okay, so I must have tested and found out that the serger wasn't going to work too well on this. So I have a tiny, tiny zigzag stitch. Has a lot of stretch. I even zigzag stitch the casing. Okay, so that's the casing. All right. Now, on this, the bottom has a circular kind of hem. I did serge before I stitched it on with a zigzag stitch. And the reason why is this: on my serger, I have a thing called differential feed. And what it does is it squeezes the fabric together as it stitches. Because the length of this edge is going to be wider than this, longer than this edge, I had to shrink it in, okay? And that way I can lay it flat like that. Now, on the sewing machine, one way you can do that is you can do a zigzag stitch, but put your thumb behind it, really push it, and you'll get some of that squeezing in of the fabric. Otherwise, the way to do a circular hem is you have to baste it, and then you got to kind of gather it until the fullness it gets flat, okay? And then it is top stitched with a tiny, tiny zigzag. So with these fabrics like velvet, you have to baste because they'll move around too much. And sometimes the really bad ones that really move a lot, I actually have to baste. This one, the seam allowance has been trimmed down, but you actually have to baste 2 rows of basting stitch and then stitch in between because it just moves around so much. You just can't control it on the machine. Okay, this is cotton velveteen, much more comfortable to wear. Okay, this one, because the fabric is heavy, I had this I probably just had a 2-inch elastic. That's why that's a 2-inch elastic. Okay, this guy's going to stay on my waist, and the weight of the fabric's not going to pull my pants down. So, and then on this one, it's all serged, so you know it's got a nice hem, twin needle hem. And then once again, I put that reinforcement tape on the crotch. Okay, a lot of times, or most of the time, after I stitch this, I will go over with a tiny zigzag stitch, because you don't want to make something and then you have to mend it later. Okay, and usually if you make something and reinforce everything, it lasts a long time. So I buy a lot of these inexpensive t-shirts like from Target, you know, to work with clay and everything. And a lot of times the hem would start, the threads would start coming undone. Yeah, and you know, this is way too long for me anyway. So if you make your own, a lot of times it just will last for a long, long time. And I'll show you just a few more knits here. So once again, this is a rayon poly, and it peels real bad in the wash. But notice it has like a texture, you know, it's 3D on the outside, but it's stable and flat on the inside. It is one fabric, and it's not that difficult to sew. Now on the because it's a little bit thicker, instead of folding, I put a binding on it. Let me see. Yeah, I put a binding on it. Okay. And then on the inside, I just hand stitched the binding down, and it has enough give. This is it's not even a set-in sleeve. It's just a loose kind of a baggy kimono sleeve kind of thing. So there's my sleeve. Okay, and there's no reinforcing because it's not tight fitting, so nothing's going to pull. Oh, on this, the reason why I hand stitched the hem is because I didn't want to flatten all those cool textures. Okay, but this fabric peeled real bad, so you know, whatever. You can also find once in a while, and this is a synthetic, it's probably poly or nylon. This is actually called a ribbon knit because there's like, it looks like ribbon is inside. Okay, so you have to make a decision. If you do a hem, do you want to flatten all those 3D ribbons, or do you want to hand stitch it to make it nice? So I had a top made out of this, and this is just a scrap fabric. That's all I have left. But sometimes I'll keep these small amounts of scraps because you can use this and just a little bit like for a cuff, okay, or an embellishment. So, but on these kind of really 3D fabrics, you might want to hand stitch the hem so you don't crush the design. And then lastly, I'm going to show you what is called a pontonet. Usually you can get rayon poly or rayon nylon. Okay, and some pills, some don't. But basically it's a thicker knit and it's great for pants. I think, I'm trying to remember which one, rayon poly or rayon nylon doesn't pill as much. Some pill real bad, but it's a nice substantial knit. It's great for jackets, okay, outerwear. This one is, I think I cut out a tunic, but I'm not quite sure what this is. Okay, a lot of times I forget what I cut out. But anyway, yeah, so it's basically a knit weave on both sides. I don't know if you can tell. It's a knit weave, okay? But it's really, and it has a good weight to it. I think this one is rayon. I don't know if it's polyester or nylon also. Usually it's a combo kind of mixture kind of fabric, but it's called PONTE knit. And they tend to be on the expensive side, okay? And remember I said that when you pull the fabric on the crosswise grain, if it rolls to one side, that should be the right side. This one's not rolling. Oh yeah, it did. Okay, so that's the right side, okay? All right, so that was our basic leggings and just a cut-on sleeve top class, okay? And so I hope you'll try sewing with knits. Most of the knits will probably have a lycra content in it for the stretch. They're easy to sew. They're comfortable, okay? The only problem is we don't have much access to fabric stores here anymore. So you'll just have to try some online, I guess, or, go to those stores I mentioned before. Okay, so we'll see you next time. Thank you. Bye.